With the NFL draft less than a week away, I thought I'd give you guys my top 50 big board rankings for the 2023 NFL draft. Now keep in mind these are my opinions, so if you disagree, let me know down in the comments. Starting the list off at number 50, I have one of the better centers in the NFL draft, John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota. Although I think he's capable of moving to either guard spots if needed because his frame and athleticism allows him to, Schmitz is a mean type of gritty lineman that the NFL seems to love nowadays. Now, he's not the strongest lineman in the world. While watching the tape, you can see him just getting thrown around by bigger defensive linemen. And he's also an older prospect at 24, so I think for the most part, it's what you see is what you get kind of thing with Schmitz. But what you get is a really good center prospect. Now, at 49, I have edge rusher out of Notre Dame, Isaiah Foskey. Foskey is just a super long and lanky dude, which I love in my edge rushers. He has a fast get off and plays with super violent hands. He also does a good job at setting the edge during the run as well. As far as technique goes, he definitely needs some refinement on that. I see him relying a little too much on his raw athleticism and length, which I see a lot of prospects do with Foskey's intangibles, so I fully expect him to improve on that once he gets to the league. Coming in at number 48, I've got one of my guys in the NFL draft, Tank Dell out of Houston. Now, Dell isn't going to wow you with his size, but he will wow you with his ability to separate and make things happen after the catch. And after the Senior Bowl, he showed people just that. He felt unguardable in the one-on-one drills. Now, in real NFL games, is he going to struggle against more physical corners? Yes. Is he going to get knocked off his routes at times? Yes. But if you get him some free releases and design plays going his way, he's going to be a problem in the NFL. 47 is where I have the Wisconsin defensive lineman, Keanu Benton. I've been pretty high on Benton for basically the whole year, I'd say, and I was happy to see him get some love towards the end of the process. He plays with a lot of physicality and aggressiveness, which you'd love to see, and with his wrestling background, you can definitely see that come through at times. Benton does struggle to find leverage in both the run game and in the pass game, which can cause him to get stonewalled at times and taken out of plays, so he'll need to work on that when he gets to the league. Coming in at 46, I have the number one guy on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, Mazi Smith from Michigan. You don't get that honor of being number one on that list without being an absolute monster athletically, and he showed you just how athletic he is at his pro day, putting up 29.5-inch vertical and an 8'11" broad jump. He also put up 34 reps in the bench press at the combine, which was 4 more reps than any defensive lineman. The only question for Smith is if he can turn that athletic ability into production onto the field. At 46, I have Jack Campbell out of Iowa. He's just a solid linebacker who's a short tackler at around 9% missed tackle rate. You rarely find him out of place or missing run assignments. And I also wouldn't be scared to put him into coverage with his good football instincts. He rarely gets his loss in coverage. Now, he isn't your sideline to sideline backer like some of the other linebackers in this class. And he also struggles with changing direction and isn't much of a pass rusher either, with very few pass rush moves. Another one of my guys here at 44 with Keely Ringo from Georgia. Ringo just has such a good frame for a boundary corner at 6'2", 207, and he matches that with great speed to keep up with almost all the receivers. Now, he does like to bite on double moves a lot, and his speed may not always be able to bail him out. And I do think he's more of a linear athlete than he is a lateral athlete. I just don't think he has that fluid of hips. Other than that, he's great at using his hands effectively and doesn't let receivers knock his hands away. So all in all, I think with a little bit of coaching, he could be a very solid CB1, but if not, then a very solid CB2. At 43, we've got Clemson linebacker Trenton Simpson. Now this is your sideline to sideline guy. Simpson is a great athlete running a 4.43 340 at the combine, which was good for second as a linebacker. He's also good at changing direction and pursuing the ball carrier. A lot of teams also like to play him out on the edge as well, since he racked up 7 sacks and 31 pressures in 2022. And there are some concerns about his play strength, as he's only 234 pounds, which is pretty small for a linebacker. And he struggled to set an anchor against the run too. And he also didn't make as many splash plays as I'd like to see from a guy like Trenton Simpson. But other than that, I think he's a very good linebacker prospect. Alright, at 42 is where I decided to stick Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. Hyatt was last year's Biletnikoff winner and has blazing speed. But that's about the only thing he's above average at, which scares me a little bit because you just see a lot of people bust that are just speedsters. You know, guys like John Ross, Andy Isabella, Philip Dorsett. And it doesn't help that Hyatt plays with little to no physicality and gets bumped off his routes quite often, which takes him out of the plays. But if he could put on a few pounds and still keep that speed, I think he could be a problem for most defenses. I've got Darnell Washington at 41 out of Georgia, and Washington is an absolutely massive tight end prospect, standing at 6'7" and weighing 272 pounds. You could really use Washington as a 6th offensive lineman if you wanted, or you can try to get the ball in his hands because a lot of people just see him as an extra offensive lineman, but I think he could be a dangerous weapon in the offense, especially in the red zone, and I don't think enough people are talking about that. Coming in at 40, I've got North Carolina receiver Josh Downs. Now, Downs is going to be a strictly slot receiver in the NFL due to his size at 5'9", 171. Now, don't let his small size deceive you. He can absolutely snag balls out of the air with the best of them. If he was 6 foot, 6'1", he may be the best receiver in the class. He's super twitched up, which makes him perfect as a slot guy, though. And North Carolina used him a lot in the screen game, which he did a nice job at letting blocks set up and running through the holes almost like a running back. But like I said, the only knock on him is that he's nowhere near big enough to play on the outside, which may tank his stock a bit. At 39, Felix Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State. Similar to Foskey, Uzomah has great length and is really strong in his upper half. And he does a good job at walking linemen back towards the quarterback and forcing them to leave the pocket. He also has good pursuing speed to get out to players in the screen game and make plays on them. But there were a few times, however, I felt like he was playing a little too out of control and ended up taking himself out of the play and even ended up on the ground some of the times. I decided to stick Emmanuel Forbes here at 38, and this was one of the harder prospects for me to rank just because he has some of the best ball skills and production of the cornerback class, but he also has one of the slightest frames of the cornerback class. He has the record for the most pick sixes in a college football career at 6, which is just mind-boggling to me. His ball skills are just on another level. Plus, he has pretty good length for the position. It's just that he weighs 166 pounds, which is very, very small for a cornerback. So I don't really know if he'll be able to play on the outside just due to his play strength. And if teams only see him as a slot guy, that'll tank his stock quite a bit. I've got Jahmyr Gibbs at 37 out of Alabama. Now, Gibbs is your home run hitter. He can take about any run to the house, just because he's got such good burst and can run through a hole in the blink of an eye. He's very Jamal Charles-esque if you ask me. Now, I'm not saying they're the exact same player, but I think that's a pretty good player comp. Plus, Gibbs can have an impact in the passing game as well, as he racked up 400 plus yards in back-to-back seasons. The only knock on Gibbs is that he might not have the size to be that every down back that you would want in the NFL, but he'd be a very good piece to add to just about any backfield. At 36, I've got Steve Avila out of TCU. Now, Avila showed out in the Senior Bowl, making me and probably a lot of others believers in him. He's quick for a guard and gets out of his set really quickly for a 344-pound man. He has a super strong upper half with really powerful hands. One of the things he does struggle with at times is finding leverage, and also at times he isn't the most technically sound guy in the world, but the tools are there for Avila. 36 is where I have Will McDonald out of Iowa State. Now, Iowa State didn't really play McDonald in the right position, I'd say, which makes him somewhat hard to evaluate. They played him a lot in like a 4-3 system and had his hand down in the dirt a lot of times. And at 239 pounds, that's just not his game. I think he'd be much better standing up and just attacking linemen using his bend and twitchiness. Now, he is an older prospect at 24 years old and did struggle against the run, which may make him a designated pass rush only guy in the league. But I think with the right coaching, he could be one of the better designated pass rush only guys. Cam Smith is here at 34 out of South Carolina. Now, I have my concerns on whether or not he's fast enough to hang on the outside, because when South Carolina played Tennessee, Smith played so far back when guarding Jalen Hyatt, and I think that was South Carolina's coaching staff not really trusting Cam Smith's speed. But then again, it was Jalen Hyatt, and I don't think anyone could keep up with that guy. Other than that, Cam Smith is a good physical corner who can knock the lights out of you. He also has pretty good ball skills, and from what I can hear, is a very good leader in the locker room. At 33, I have right tackle Dawand Jones out of Ohio State. Now, this dude is an absolutely massive man, standing at 6'8", 374 pounds. Now, with that, just like most guys his size, he has a hard time finding leverage and isn't the fastest athlete. But Jones is very physical in the run game and just destroys smaller defenders with his size and power. I think if he gets drafted into a power run scheme, he could be a solid contributor day one at tackle. At 32, I have guard Osiris Torrance out of Florida. Torrance has a sturdy build with great length for the position. He has a lot of power in his frame as well and easily absorbs contact. He's also improved in his pass protection each year, which was something I was a bit skeptical of about him coming out, but I think he's proved to me that he's improved in that aspect. However, I am still a bit skeptical of his hand placement at times, and he also isn't the most fluid athlete for the position, but I think he's one of the few interior guys at least that could be a day one starter in the league. At 31, I have one of the hardest names to pronounce in this year's draft, Adetomiwa Abrawe out of Northwestern, and I'm sure that's not how you pronounce it, but that's the best I could do. Now, he's a nice athlete for the defensive line position. He's long and uses that to his advantage when he bull rushes offensive linemen. Now, he is a bit smaller for the interior at 6'2", 282, and with that, you can see why he struggles a bit defending the run. Cracking the top 30, I have tight end Dalton Kincaid from Utah. Kincaid is, in my opinion, the best receiving tight end in this year's draft. He explodes out of his stance and creates good separation out of his breaks. Now, he has some of the shortest hands, not only as a tight end, but as any receiver in this year's draft. Now, you're not drafting him for his blocking abilities. If you want someone like that, then you would look to guys like Darnell Washington and also another guy a bit higher on the list. Coming in at 29, I have Boston College receiver Zay Flowers. Now, Flowers is a lot like Downs, just a bit bigger, but not by much at 5'9", 182, which is probably still a slot-only guy in the NFL, just like majority of the guys in this class. Flowers is a speedy and sudden athlete, and he shows great vision as a ball carrier and can also cut on a dime. His hands have gotten a lot better over time, and last season he was able to play through contact and even play over taller defenders and attack the catch point. And I think unlike Downs, Flowers can win on the outside on occasions. At 28, I have Pitt D tackle Kalijah Kancey. It's taken me a while to come around to Kancey, but now that I have, I'm all in on him. Even though he's small for the position, he's just an excellent pass rusher in the interior and can probably kick to the outside at times as well. Now, obviously, Kancey isn't a strong run defender and can oftentimes get overpowered in the run game against stronger offensive linemen, but a good coach is able to hide his deficiencies and perfect his strengths. At 27, I have my number 1 tight end prospect in this year's draft, Notre Dame's Michael Mayer. Mayer just has that prototypical size for a tight end at 6'5", 252, and a lot of people like to compare him to Gronk, and though I wouldn't go that far, I do really like his ability to be a really good receiver as well as a really good blocker for the position. Now, he's not going to blow you away athletically, but he does know how to get open, and once he gets the ball into his hands, it's hard to bring him down. I've got Anton Harrison here at 26, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. A lot of people had questions about his play strength, including me, and I still think I might have those same concerns. But Harrison makes up for that with his great movement skills, and he's also really quick out of his stance. He mirrors well and shows a great recognition for blitzes and feel for pressure. At 25, I have another one of my guys, and LSU's edge rusher B.J. Ojulari, brother of Giants edge rusher Azeez Ojulari. I tend to like the more twitched up edge defenders with good bend, and I think B.J. is one of the best in the class when it comes to that. The combination of explosiveness and length is very good, and he turns speed into power while working with good leverage, and that's a deadly combo. Ojulari is a bit undersized though at sub 250 and could add some more strength to his game, and as a run defender, he tends to take bad angles and gets moved out of place at times. 24 is where I decided to slot in Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee. Now he's a big guy and is hard to get around, sitting at 6'5", 333 pounds. Despite being one of the heavier tackle prospects, he's surprisingly quick and agile for his size and uses that in the run game, being able to get to the second level quickly. But while he's quick to get to the second level, he isn't so quick at recovering and pass protection. Edge defenders are typically able to get around him pretty easily, and he's not able to recover it quick enough. All in all though, I think he can be a solid contributor in almost any scheme. I have Deonte Banks at 23 out of Maryland. He's your physical, almost too physical at times corner. I say he's sometimes too physical because he was flagged 8 times last year and probably could have got flagged a bit more. But I would rather my receivers be a little too physical at times than not physical enough. He makes it tough for receivers to get off the line of scrimmage and press, and shows good speed to keep up with receivers. I feel like he can, though, sometimes get beat out of break sometimes just because he's too busy hand fighting down the field. But other than that, I think he's a solid first-round corner. Jordan Addison is another one of my guys here at 22, and I really hope he's here at 25 so my Giants are able to draft him. I think people overreact to his 40 time a bit just because you can see on tape that he has good enough speed. And plus, I think he was dealing with like back spasms or something like that during the combine when he tested. And yes, he is light at 173 pounds and will probably struggle against more physical corners, but I just love his ability to separate with his crisp route running. And I think he could be on the same tier as like a Devontae Smith at the next level, which the Giants could definitely use. Bryan Bresee is here at 21, D tackle from Clemson, and I think I'm still a bit higher on Bresee than most people are. I just like his constant motor on the field, and I feel like this guy just never stops until the whistle is blown. I also feel like unlike most top guys on the defensive line position this year, Bresee offers a lot in the run defense as well as having a pass rushing upside. And some people are worried about his injury history, but I'm not really worried at all. All his injuries had nothing to do with each other, so I don't think he's like injury prone or nothing like that. I just think he had an unlucky college career with injuries. Nolan Smith is at 20, edge rusher from Georgia, and this dude is an absolute speedster for an edge, or matter of fact, just as a football player in general, because he ran a 4.39 40, which is faster than freaking Saquon Barkley. Now with that speed, obviously comes a smaller frame at 6'2", 238, but don't let that small stature fool you. He's a lot better run defender than you would think. Plus, he has all the bend in the world when it comes to rushing the quarterback. I just worry about his play strength at times against more powerful offensive linemen. At number 19, I have Alabama safety or slot corner Brian Branch. He's my top safety or slot, whatever you want to classify him as. He's a physical tackler with only a 3.3% missed tackle percentage, which is very elite for his position, but he's also great at defending the pass. He reads and reacts super quick to go along with good ball skills as well. I do feel like he is a bit of a risk taker though. While you can make some big plays with that mentality, you can also give up some as well. At number 18, I have Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. I feel like a lot of people hate on Levis, and while I don't think he's on the same tier as the other quarterbacks in this draft, I do think a team should take a swing on him somewhat early in the first round. He's built almost like a tight end, but can also launch the ball 50 to 60 yards with ease. He's also coming from a very pro-style offense at Kentucky, so the transition to the NFL might not be as bad as some of the other quarterbacks who ran more of a gimmicky offense in college. Now, Levis is 24 years old already, so he might not be able to improve as much as some of the other quarterbacks I have a bit higher up on my board. He's also not the most polished passer and does make his fair share of boneheaded plays, but I think as long as you surround him with a good coaching staff, he has a chance to be a big-time player in the league. At 17, I have Quentin Johnston, the receiver out of TCU. Now, TCU doesn't have the best track record when it comes to producing actual first-round talented receivers, with receivers like Jalen Reagor and Josh Doxson both busting pretty hard when they get to the league. And I'm not going to say for sure Johnston can break that curse. He is a good receiver, which is why I have him at 17, but for being 6'3", 208 pounds, you'd expect him to be a physical receiver who beats guys to the catch point and wins those 50-50 balls, but he's just not. That's something that he actually needs to work on. He's actually a great receiver after the catch, with great initial bursts and good enough route running skills to get separation. I would love to see him improve on his physicality, especially at the catch point, but I'm just scared that's not in him. I have Lucas Van Ness here at 16, the edge rusher from Iowa. He never actually started a game for Iowa last year, but once he got onto the field, the coaches didn't want to bring him off. He's a big dude listed at 6'5", 272 pounds, so with that size, he's obviously a very powerful guy, and he has super violent hands that can just swipe away offensive linemen. He could also put some more weight on and be a very good 3-tech as well if that's what a team wanted to do. Van Ness is kind of like a ball of clay that can be molded into whatever you want for your defensive line. At number 15, I have Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I don't really care that he's quote-unquote a slot guy and that he doesn't have enough speed to be a good receiver. And while that may be true, Jason has incredible short area quickness and can make you miss in the open field. He can also easily separate with his smooth route running ability, and if he is a slot-only receiver in the NFL, we've seen guys like Cooper Kupp absolutely dominate from the slot, and many consider him to be a top 5 to 7 receiver in the NFL. So I think JSN is going to be just fine in the NFL, whether he's a slot guy or if he's able to play on the outside. At number 14, I have Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia. Jones has a thick frame and plays like he just wants to hit somebody. I love his mentality, and that was on display all the time during the 2022 season. He's a good athlete too for being 6'5", 315 pounds, but he's also a strong dude as well. Now, he does struggle with his footwork at times and can sometimes seem a bit clunky to me, but if he can clean that up, I think he has a chance to be the best tackle from this class. 13 is where I decided to slot in Myles Murphy, the edge rusher from Clemson. He, like Van Ness, is a strong physical guy who's great against the run and could probably play some 3-tech as well. And for a man his size, he should not be able to get off the line of scrimmage like he does. He might have one of the best get-offs for an edge rusher in this class. He did have a down season though, which is unfortunate for him, but if you just look back at the 2021 season, you'll see why I have him this high on my big board. I have Bijan Robinson at 12, running back from Texas, and I know the running back position isn't as valuable as it used to be, but I really think he's the exception. He's just more than a running back. He's like an offensive weapon. Sure, he can be a running back who can rush 20 to 25 times a game, but he's also an amazing receiver as well. If for whatever reason a team is thin at receiver for a game or two due to injury, I really think they can slot in Robinson and he can hold his own at receiver for a game or two. But as a running back, he has some of the best vision and patience I've seen to go along with great contact balance and burst. The only thing that's really keeping him from being a near perfect prospect is his long speed. You're on a 4.46 40, which isn't bad by any means, but compared to the rest of his game, it's lacking a bit. So I think whichever team drafts him is getting a top 5 to 7 running back right out the get-go, the second they draft him. I've got Devin Witherspoon at 11, cornerback out of Illinois. He's super sticky in man coverage and has some pretty fluid hips. And in off coverage, he comes downhill like a missile to break up passes. He's a good physical tackler too. But he is a bit small, especially if he hopes to play on the outside full time. I also think his ball skills aren't as solid as people say they are. There were some pass breakups that I could have seen being interceptions if he had a bit better ball skills and was more physical at the catch point. I got Joey Porter Jr. cracking the top 10 for me, and I know some people are going to say that's too high for him, but I just really like him, man. He's got super long arms and projects to be a pretty good outside press corner. He's able to just jam guys at the start of their routes and plays physical throughout the whole route. I do think his ball skills need to improve a bit. He had 9 pass breakups, but I would like to see a few of them turn into interceptions. Other than that, I think he's a good enough tackler and plays good enough against the run. I wouldn't say it's a weakness in his game, but I also wouldn't really necessarily call it a strength either. I got Paris Johnson here at 9, offensive tackle from Ohio State. And before I even get into his play on the field, I just want to say that he's a very high character guy off the field and is a great leader on it. And when it comes to his body, he's big, strong, athletic, and long. He stands at 6'6", 313 pounds and has 36-inch arms. He plays with great explosiveness and has good movement skills and footwork. He does need to work on his hand usage a bit, which is kind of nitpicky, but it is what it is. And some people may be concerned that he's only played 1 year at left tackle. But the way I look at it is, he's just got experience playing multiple positions on the offensive line, which is never a bad thing. At number 8, I have my number 1 corner, not by much, but it's Oregon corner, Christian Gonzalez. He's kind of a physical specimen with his combination of size, length, and athleticism. He has super fluid hips, which is what makes him so good in man coverage, and he's also pretty good in zone coverage as well. He's one of the only corners that's pretty good in both. I think he's a bit better in man coverage though, just because he's a bit too passive in zone coverage in my opinion. He's a pretty good tackler as well, and he also got a lot better at attacking the catch point in 2022, because I had some questions on that when watching his tape in 2021. I've got Texas Tech edge rusher Tyree Wilson here at 7. I think Wilson is kind of like the Trayvon Walker of this year's draft. He has all the tools in the world to be a great edge rusher, and he also has a great frame at 6'5", 275 pounds with an unbelievable 85-inch wingspan. And although he is pretty massive, the guy moves like he's 250 pounds. Wilson is great against the run and is able to just shed off blocks with ease. Now when it comes to rushing the passer, I think he needs some improvement in that aspect. He's a bit late off the ball at times and usually doesn't look like he has much of a plan when trying to attack offensive tackles. He's also coming off of a foot injury that kept him out all of the combine drills, so teams weren't able to match the tape with his combine numbers, but I don't think that'll keep teams from drafting him or nothing like that. At number 6, I have Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern. Now the elephant in the room with him is if he's actually a tackle or not. People don't know if he has the arm length to play tackle, and I'm not sure if he does. He's 6'4", 313 pounds with only 32.25-inch arms, which isn't that great for an offensive tackle. I think whichever team drafts him should at least try him out at tackle and give him a chance, and if he can't play tackle, then he's just going to be a very, very good guard for you. The good thing about him is he has experience playing just about all 5 positions on the offensive line, so you can just stick him wherever you have a hole at. Now we're into the top 5, and starting off the top 5, I have Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson. He's extremely athletic for the quarterback position, breaking almost all the combine records for a QB. He ran a 4.4 340 at 6'4", 244 pounds, which is just mind-boggling to me. He also has the strongest arm in the draft and is able to just throw 50 to 60 yards with a flick of the wrist, it seems. Now the question with Richardson is if he can accurately throw the ball. He had a 64% adjusted completion percentage, which if you don't know, that takes into account throwaways, spikes, and dropped passes. And I'm going to tell you right now, 64% is pretty bad. I also have questions about his processing ability and his ability to read defenses and move through his progressions. I think he does a good job of staying in the pocket when he needs to and doesn't just run whenever his first read isn't open, like so many other dual threat quarterbacks do coming out of college. I really like Richardson, and I think he has the highest ceiling of the QB class, but I also think he has the lowest floor. So whichever team drafts him is taking a pretty big risk in my opinion, but it may be worth it. At number 4, I have CJ Stroud, and I think of all the quarterback prospects, Stroud is probably the safest of them all, but he also probably has the lowest ceiling of them all as well, I would say. He's more of your prototypical pocket passer, although in the Georgia playoff game, he showed that he can maneuver the pocket and make plays on his feet as well. I think Stroud is one of the more accurate guys in the class and can move throughout his progressions pretty well. Now, it did come out somewhat recently that Stroud scored a historically low on the cognitive test for the QBs. He scored an 18%, while guys like Bryce Young had a 98%, Will Levis had a 93%, and I think Richardson had a 79%, so all much, much higher than Stroud. But I wouldn't overreact too much. It's not like Stroud's a dummy and can't play football, so just don't overreact too much to that. Coming in at number 3, we have Jalen Carter, defensive tackle from Georgia. Now, this big board is solely based on talent. If you want to base it off of other stuff outside of football, then he might drop a bit. So he might drop in the draft a bit too. But solely based on talent, he is my 3rd best prospect in the class. He's 6'3", 323 pounds, and he's just super explosive. He's powerful. He plays with quick feet. He has like nice pop in his hands. He's just super explosive for that 323 pounds. Now, the downside to him is the off the field stuff. He was involved in a car crash incident where he fled the scene, came back like an hour later. It just didn't look too good for him. He got a year of probation, and then following that, he had a pretty bad pro day as well. He just looked out of shape. He just had a bad pro day. That doesn't mean he's not a great player, though. I still think he's the top 3 player in the draft. And I think whichever team drafts him is taking a risk because of his backstory and his maturity. But strictly on the field wise, I think he's one of the better prospects in the class. At number 2, I have Alabama's Bryce Young. Now, the elephant in the room with him is that he's 5'10", 204 pounds. And I think he's realistically going to be playing more at that 195 to 198 pound mark, which is pretty scary for an NFL team. Besides his size concerns, he's a really good prospect. You know, nobody presses the field quicker than him. He has a great pocket poise. He's great at improvising and leaving the pocket and making plays on his feet. He has a super fast release, and he's able to make all the throws on the field. He has a strong enough arm to make any throw on the field. The only problem with him is that he's 5'10", 204 pounds, and we've never seen a quarterback that size be successful in the league. People say like, oh, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. They were a bit bigger than him, though. They had broader shoulders. They weren't as slight a frame as Bryce Young is. So it is a bit scary, but I'm not too worried about it. And then the other thing that I've seen with him is that he does drift a bit in the pocket. But, I mean, that's just nitpicky. It is what it is. A good coach can coach that right out of him. And at my number 1 spot, the player who I think is the best player in the class is Alabama's edge rusher, Will Anderson Jr. Anderson's 6'3", 253 pounds, which is a bit small for an edge rusher, but he doesn't play it like that. He has elite bend and burst. He has an incredible first step, and he plays a lot stronger than that 253-pound mark. The one kind of nitpicky thing I have with Will Anderson is I don't think he has many pass rush moves, but the very few that he does have work almost every time. So for him, it's like, why even get more pass rush moves at this point in my career? All the pass rush moves that I do use work. Now, once he gets to the league, he's going to have coaches that can show him different moves, teach him different moves, and improve in that aspect. So I'm not too worried about that anyways. But yeah, that's the one like little nitpicky thing I have with him. Other than that, I think he's a pretty solid player. He's definitely a blue chip prospect to me. So yeah, those are my top 50 prospects in this year's draft. And I'm sure you guys disagree with a lot of them. Not everyone's going to agree on every single position. So yeah, if you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments. And let's have a nice little conversation down there. If you guys could please like the video and subscribe if you liked at least some of my picks and agreed with some of them, that'd be great. And until next time, thank you.